is defined as 5% or 1,500 endemic plant species lost, with 70% loss of habitat. And if you think about between Bologna wetlands and Vicente Bluffs, where the El Segundo blue lives, it's been a whole lot more than 70%.
Real quick, do you think they can see the screen if they're watching on Zoom?
Oh yeah, because that's the screen.
Well, I'm saying.
No, we're sharing it.
Oh, you guys are sharing it
Yeah.
there too? Okay. Because I just say that right there and it's
Yeah,
not.
no,
pointing toward-
So I'm pretty big on references. Phil Rundell, who's now pretty much retired, has given me complete permission to use this graphic that he had grad student make up for him. The two of them work together. So continue on.
Yeah, it's a nice graphic, wow.
Isn't it beautiful? I
Yeah,
love
the
it.
one picture tells you so much.
Did I describe it well enough for you to figure
Yeah.
that out? Okay, so here we have an example of indism. The El Segundo blue butterfly requires a sea cliff buckwheat plant. Now the buckwheats are they're very, very abundant. Our local one, the sea cliff buckwheat, just grows along the cliffs. I'll have an image of it soon. The plant, when it comes, springs come around, it just sits there. Doesn't do anything about halfway through March. And then it starts producing its new foliage for the new year. It blooms in June and July. Now, we all think of summer being dry, but this is an adaptation, and it has a lot to do with the type of photosynthesis that this plant uses. And so it's tied in. These plants bloom June and July, and so the butterfly flies in June and July, not August. It's what is known as a single brood insect. When I first learned about this, I go, how in the world can it be successful? Means the butterflies, this butterfly that was flying, I took this picture a year ago, June, this coming June. That's a nice male there. It had just eclosed or come out and started its life as an adult. There, it mated with the females. The females laid eggs. We've got a thing on the life history coming up soon. And they eventually, the caterpillars go into the leaf litter of the plant, and there it stays through fall, winter, and spring, only to come out in the summertime. It only reproduces once. So a lot of butterflies will have successes, broods. The monarch is probably one of the more famous ones. And so its entire life cycle is on the sea cliff buckwheat. Natural threats, lizards and birds. There was a funny story at the military base there in San Pedro, and formerly called the Fuel Supply Point. The commander had been out for a butterfly release on Sunday. Monday, she's out for her noontime jog, and she knows where the butterflies are, so she stops to look at them, and she sees like bunches of little blue butterfly wings on the ground. She frantically called the woman in charge of the captive rearing program for the Palos Verde Blue, and Dr. Jana Johnson said, "Don't worry, that's their role in life." Lizards and bird. Read lizards and bird food. The lizards will actually climb into the bushes to leap on the butterflies. I've seen a male be caught, and I've seen 2 females elude catch. And then, of course, human threats are huge. Next. So here is, oh, it's not doing it. Okay, well, it didn't come out looking the way I expected it to. I was lost in translation. So here's the male. They have their upper wings are blue. When their wings are up like that, you can't tell the males and the females apart unless you know what to look for. And then this is the female. They're chocolatey brown when they're brand new. Really pretty. So they come out. They've spent all fall, winter, and spring underneath in the leaf litter of the sea cliff, and they come out And the first thing they do is they take up, they drink some nectar, and then they catch it and they reproduce. So this is a mating pair. This is the male and this is the female. And after 3 or so days, it's time to lay eggs. And this is a female laying an egg. And you can't really see it, but there's a little white dot right there. This little gal was having a hard time hitting the inside of the flower. It's supposed to lay the eggs in the inside of the flower. And after a couple weeks, this is the larva or the caterpillar. They go through 5 molts, and this is the 5th molt. And when this little larva has done what every insect does on the planet Earth, eat like eating machines, then it crawls down into the leaf litter and turns into the pupa. I've never seen, or the chrysalis, I've never seen an Elsagunda blue chrysalis. I have seen the Palos Verdes blue because they're captive reared. Elsagunda blue, all I got to do is plant their seacliff buckwheat. So I get to use Rick Rogers' drawing. And then they'll come out as adults the following summer. So any butterflies you see, and I'll be doing butterfly walks in June, into July. Any butterfly Elsagunda blue you see in June and July were born last year. And how in the world that's a successful lifestyle is beyond me, but that's what it is. Okay, next. Is it making you step through all the? Okay, there we go. So here's the threats to them. The little western fence lizards, those are the ones that crawl up into the bushes. They do the same thing with the Palos Verdes blue. California gnatcatcher, a threatened species, will eat the butterflies too. Okay, continue on. Okay, so here's really the crux of the talk. What can you do? You can plant local natives. If you have an apartment or a condo, get some pots and put them in with native plants, buying right here at Madrona when they have their plant sales. You can also create habitat. Now this is Torrance Beach, right there and the bluff. In 2002, 2001, 2002, LA County Department of Beaches and Harbors put in a new walkway. It's right here, you can't see, but they also refurbished their facilities. And so they had to put in local native habitat. And they did. And this has been the most successful one. So if you do a butterfly walk with me, it's likely gonna end up there. Because they put in a new driveway, they bulldozed the whole thing and buried all the weed seed. And it's beautiful. So I'm using this as a standard for when I plan for new restorations. And it's basically 1/3 seacliff buckwheat, 1/3 California sagebrush, or if you're in an area where the sagebrush doesn't do so well, California Encelia, Encelia californica, whatever the common name is. So they can trade off. You can even put them both in. And then 33% of local species. So this was peak flight season, and you see all these whitish plants. Those are all the seacliff buckwheat. Yeah.
You said they had to do this, so does the California Coastal Commission or some code, if you're
I'm not
going to do building here, require that you do
I'm
the
not
sort of stuff?
sure how they worked that one out. It may have been coastal. City of Redondo Beach has a different setup, so they don't need coastal. But I've worked with people up in here, and they always are involved in coastal, and so I get work and go out there and hike on properties there like that. I was out there last Friday. It was interesting. It was a little bit too early. Okay, next. So this is Redondo Beach. before we started a revegetation project, the plants went in 2004. So Torrance went in 2003, Redondo went in 2004. And if you got this problem, like those people on the hillside I pointed to, they've got a real problem with ice plant. All of this ice plant was pulled out, and there's still a bit of a problem there. But what's really cool about ice plant is you can roll it up like a carpet if you got a slope on your property. You have to be careful. If it gets too big, it might take a life of its own. And that happened out at the LA Dunes. And so there's like acacia and freeway ice plant and crystalline ice plant. So this is a freeway ice plant. And this is a crystalline, and it's pretty ugly there. Now, Julian here is the treasurer of the chapter. He is an ice plant killer. And the restoration site he works at is all gone. Okay, continue on.
It's very close to where I was last Saturday with
Mm.
Jim and I.
Oh, yeah.
And we saw that crystal plant, I've never seen it before. And it was gorgeous, you hold it up, looks like Tiffany's designed it when it's full with the water. And so we thought, oh, let's bring a little home and put it in our garden. And then we realized after we planted it there and then it died, that it absorbed all the salt water. If you squish it, it tastes like salt water. And that we probably need to pull it out because it would poison all the other plants by putting the salt.
Well, what it will do is grow over all your other plants.
Oh, yeah, it's very invasive. We know that.
Really invasive, yeah.
So it's
So here's another one. This is tumbleweed. And the time to remove them is when they're little like this, even smaller, because they're very spiky. They hurt. Okay, continue on. And this Cal Ipsy is a really good resource for invasive plants. Okay, continue on. All right, so I'm going to go through several of the local plants. This fellow here had a landslide on his property, and it was $1 million plus project. But what they ended up doing, you can't really see here, but they had these geogrid installed, and then they planted right in the geogrids. They had native plants here, and it's looking great, and it has also got the blues all over the property. This is lemonade berry, and this is I don't know, that is saltbush, and then here's more lemonade berry. So this was removed and that was removed. All had to be removed before the planting went in. And so I have these little graphs here, and it shows where the plants actually occur in California. So we'll continue on. Here's another one. Now this is talking about Seacliff buckwheat. And here's where you'll find it all along the coastline. There's another species of buckwheat that goes up here. This is the Seacliff buckwheat. It hasn't really bloomed yet. That was actually from last year. This is an adopt-a plot where 3 of us have worked at, and other people, where we're working on this cliff, not too close to the edge, and putting in habitat. And we have also going to be butterflies there. Okay, next one. So if you want to back up one, I wrote, yeah, plant it at 33% if you're doing Elsa blue habitat. Okay, continue on. I changed that out. I have the wrong copy on my flash drive. That's not a problem. So the California sagebrush is another special status species. I put in a better picture here. Sorry, folks.
Where am I in that picture?
Huh?
Where am I in that picture?
You were busy working.
Am I in that picture?
No. No. But you recognize everybody there. And then this is where the California sagebrush lives. So it's coastal plants. Okay, continue on. All right, this is my biggie. Everybody thinks native plants turn ugly, and I'm here to convince you that they don't. And so I've got kind of a menu of what you can get, but there's other plants too. You just have to be careful when you buy them and know when they're going to bloom. In the wintertime, we have wishbone plant with magenta flowers. Mine are just starting to come out. In the summertime, the sea cliff buckwheat puts all these pinkish whitish blooms. In the fall, California fuchsia, which is like crack cocaine for hummingbirds. They cannot leave it alone, and they fight like crazy. And in the fall, we get toyon. So we'll continue on. Here's wishbone. Now this is my backyard. You can see the magenta. They're a 4 o'clock plant, so they're brightest in the morning, in the late afternoon, midnight. You get flowers. I want to close up, but they're still.
How far is your garden from the shore?
About a half mile, and we're at the top of the hill, so we can have days where it's foggy in our front yard and sunny in the back. The first time that happened to me, I thought, oh, good, the bedroom's in the back. Nice sunny day. I put on shorts and a t-shirt, flip-flops, and I walked out to the kitchen. What? Yeah, sunny in the back, and I could barely see across the street. So obviously I changed my clothing real quick. So the wishbone is summer dormant. If you water it a lot, it will continue, but at one point it's going to want to go dormant. And it starts growing about this time of year. It has these magenta blooms. And look, it can be found in a lot of places here. When you get to the desert, you find other species of wishbone, but you only have one along here. Okay, continue on. I'll tell you a little bit more about this disjunct thing. Here's a sea cliff buckwheat. I had a picture here of 1-year-old plants, but these things are 3 years old. They're getting plenty of water. Late spring, we're talking May, they start pushing blooms. They really get going in June and July. And then once they've been fertilized by butterflies and wasps and everything else, their flowers turn this rust red color. The plant itself will start growing in mid-March, not before. 15th, tax day. No, that's April. Into June. And then it just, once it's done putting on this year's foliage, then it starts doing the flowers. And like I've mentioned before, Mama Butterfly will only lay her eggs on the sea cliff buckwheat. And so those are 3-year-old plants at this restoration where you saw that follow going. This is his neighbor's property, and that particular soil doesn't let anything grow. So continue on.
It's showing up here, but not.
Oh, it takes a while. Whoops, back up one.
That's it.
Oh, that's it? Okay, yeah, this is fall, California fuchsia. And you can see it's just a beautiful orange color. Sometimes it gets really, really dense with the flowers. And I have some, this is along my driveway, but I have a big area of this in the summertime, and that's where the hummingbirds go nuts. And what's interesting is it doesn't even start blooming. We'll get a couple of blooms in August. September, October, November is when this thing is flowering. So you always tend to think summertime, fall, nothing's blooming. That guy blooms, and you can grow it in pots very easily. It reproduces by seed, but also by stolon. And it can get a little bit out of control unless you stay on top of it. And look at the distribution throughout California, just everywhere. So continue on. Toyon, and again, this is more in central and coastal, but not so much deserty, in the real dry areas. It can be pruned into looking like a tree. How's it going so far for yours?
It's just magnificent.
There you go. This is The grandmother of all toyons is in the preserves. You gotta kind of know where it is. And I wanted to take a picture of it. And it's so big that I had to walk back and back and back. It would fill a good third of this room. And it has these beautiful red berries in December. And you're familiar with Hollywood plant? This is another common name for toyon. The Hollywood sign, Hollywood was named after this particular species. It's a local native. Isn't that cool? And see, it grows pretty much everywhere. Not where my mom, well, she's no longer here on the planet. Oh yeah, and here's their flowers, which would be the fall. Okay, continue on. So an example of a native plant garden. Excuse me. This is my house. When I was a marine biologist, so I didn't know anything about the plants at that time. But I did know about, I was learning about wildlife corridors. And I thought, well, it makes sense to put in local native plants. That's how I got involved in the Redondo Beach bluffs. So what we have here is really a mature garden. These are purple sage. They're really a lovely plant. And if I ever make something that requires sage, I just walk out and grab a few leaves. These are manzanitas. They don't belong here, but I'm a sucker for manzanitas. We have a Central Coast buckwheat there. I've got like 5 different buckwheats in the yard. And this is a beach evening primrose by and large. I get some poppies there. My yard has gotten so dense that the poppies aren't doing as well as they used to. When I first started it, was all poppies. So this is April. I've got bulbs starting to come up then. And this is August. So this area here, which would be like, the beach, coastal strand, except for people running around on the beach and kill everything. But there are some places where you can find this stuff. But everything else there, we have the green manzanitas, the purple sage. It's got the light green leaves. This red buckwheat. It's nice and red at that point in time. So you can always have color. The biggie one is in my yard, February and March, where I get all kinds of plants blooming. It's really a whole lot of fun. And whenever anybody new moves onto the street, everybody else tells them, my yard may not look much in August, but wait till spring. So this is August. So continue on.
Before there were settlers here, the plants just grew wherever they were, and that defined what is coastal. Because the ocean varies from one mile to the other if it goes in. What is a definition of coastal now? Do you have any idea of where it stands and where does it end? Like,
Well,
is there coastal in
anything that
downtown
gets
Los
into-
Angeles? Just exaggerate.
Well, yeah. Any place that really gets the spring overcast and fogs.
Okay.
So, as you'll notice, as summer goes, they evaporate sooner and sooner. But May and June can be a challenge here. Is it ever going to warm up? One time we went out to Palm Desert. Mom was still alive. And it was 63 degrees in the backyard, and we got out to Palm Desert and it was 113, and we got out of the car and we just kind of like stopped.
So the part of TV that, for example, does not face the ocean,
Very different.
faces Hollywood, is not coastal because the fog can't make it over the hill.
Correct, yeah. Yeah, there's a real difference. You might not notice it, but you can see the difference. There's no cactus on the north side of the hill. There's cactus all throughout the coast, on the ocean facing side. I'm trying to think. Lemonade berry is more dominant on the ocean side. It's a plant that's really remarkable. It never quits growing. You plant that thing, they're a little bit hard to get going, but once you get them going, they don't stop. There are some plants there that had a 75-foot wide canopy. And then in 2009, there was the big fire. They had to start from the beginning again, but they had the root structure. So here's more color. This is another buckwheat. This hails from the very westernmost part of the Santa Monica Mountains. I've seen it in situ. It puts up with really bad habitat, let me tell you, but it's a lovely plant, and I'm trying to turn this all into sulfur yellow color in the springs. This was on our Christmas cards in 2020. That's where we vacationed. We had mourning doves at once, but the little guy had on the first page, they were raising kids in my yard. And this is our newest bird watcher. We got her last August, 3 months. And we built her a catio. And the birds are here now. She's really getting into bird watching. Okay. Oh, there's some websites, yeah. So this is a dark-eyed junco. And then we see them, they're all throughout the local area. Probably some here. Have you seen them here?
Yes, yeah,
Yeah, expecting.
yeah.
They're doing quite well in things. And so I want to mention there are references, and we had a problem with word wrap when it went from my computer at home to here. But esbcoalition.org tells you how to put in native habitat and how to handle the plants. Countscape.org is a real cool one. You turn up countscape.org and you type in your address where you live in the top bar, and it will return a list of plants that's suitable for your area. It took them a while to get it. They got it. This is PVPLC. They'll the native local plants. You're familiar with the Palos Verdes Peninsula Land Conservancy. They sell the local plants. Tree of Life Nursery is a place to experience. They have wonderful native plants. Great place to go to. And that's it. So any of you folks on line got questions, lay them on me.
But what street are you on? I walked right over to John Doe.
Oh, 800 block of South Juanita.
It's so close to me. I'm on the 400 block of South Windsor. Wish I had.
Oh, okay. So you gotta jump down to the J's
Uh-huh.
and walk right
800.
on. And I'm usually
Juanita.
working in the yard on Sunday mornings.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. It's supposed to be good weather.
I think I know where your house is.
Well, now you know what it looks like.
It
It's a
Dark
little
looks familiar.
1948 wooden house. And it was pretty uncomfortable when I bought it, but we fixed up about everything we can possibly fix up. Forced air heating, insulation, new windows. Boy, was that a business.
So since you put in those plants, what have you noticed about the animals that you get in the?
Well, we
birds
have
and so
our
forth?
official bird watcher now.
Mhm,
She is going nuts.
mhm.
She can sit on an ottoman in front of the living room window.
Do you see things that you didn't see, say, 10 years ago?
I'm learning the birds better, so I don't know if that's a good thing, but we've had the local native birds, and then once the stuff matured, that made a big difference. So the purple sage are about this big. I actually cut them back every now and again. They put up a beautiful lavender flower. I wonder if there's any illustrated here. Well, I know she's got some in here, but it's a real pretty lavender flower. What
We
happens
started
is
getting more lizards last summer, all of a sudden, those little teeny ones.
I haven't gotten any
Lots of
lizards.
those, and
Not
that
that
was-
I know.
We haven't been there for least what, 15 years or something, and never saw.
Yeah, you needed to get one there. I think the birds are probably eating the chips that I have seeded.
We started getting lizards.
Seeded?
We've had about 15 years since we started planting. Yeah, it took 2 years for it to show up.
So I'm slowly.
The plan gets these chattering birds and sparrows.
Do the birds eat the chrysalis? Is that a risk for these,
There can be,
fireflies?
where's you saw that starting slide, I had bird with a couple of bugs in its mouth. The juncos, I think, are omnivores. But we get the bug eaters in our yard. The understory of the purple sage is very, very popular. And in the backyard, I have the California fuchsia and the super buckwheat, the understory. It's always got birds in it.
Could you protect, see if you saw butterflies depositing those eggs, could you put a mesh over the plant so that the egg and its maturing doesn't get picked off by a bird?
The only thing I'm doing is I'm trying to grow native bulbs. And I started a new native bulb garden in my backyard. And I took some mesh that the birds can cook through and eat the plants.
And buckwheat, when you let it grow, it gets so big and dense that the birds can't penetrate. The branches are crisscross, and when it's small like this, they can get under. But when it gets to be like manhunters, they start bunching together and they're all big, and you get a whole forest of them. I think those Cuba have a pretty good thing going.
Yeah, they go down into the dirt. There's obviously the reason why they burrow down into the leaf litter in the dirt.
Yeah.
A lot of the blues do that. The Pellsbury blue does that. The Elspeth blue, of course, you've heard. So, yeah, I don't really at home. I just watch to see what happens. The California Native Plant Society had a guy, and he moved to Hawaii, unfortunately. He was a great guy, but he and his partner filmed the yards using still cameras and GoPros, and he was walking around the yard with the GoPro. And there's a lot of traffic going up and down the street. Everybody was crossing the other side of the street and watching. Are you guys selling the house? No, but you can find, you can go and Dalkey's 360 yard on the Native Plant Society, and you can find it. You can see what the backyard looks like.
And I'll share the link as well.
Oh, okay.
Did you need to amend the soil in any way to reproduce the coastal?
No, and you know what it is. It's salt, the sand.
Sand,
Very
right.
sandy. In fact, I was doing grain size analyses when I was working up at CLA, the high grain treatment plant, where we collect them out in the ocean, and I was running them. So I decided one day to bring in a sample from home. And I really understood one of the steps. We had to get rid of the organic material using hydrogen peroxide. With the ocean, the organic in the mud is so low relative to on land. I thought, oh, now I understand that step. The lab director wasn't too sure. I brought some in from home so I could see the difference. It was a good lesson.
You have a question from Gayla Burkholder.
Oh, okay, Gayla.
I don't know if she can unmute or I can ask the question. I can ask it. Did you plant the fuchsia from seed?
Oh, no, I bought plants. I bought more than one. And then where I put them, I think I put them in a pot. And they've invaded my backyard. I have to hold them at bay. I was outside this morning and go, oh, I gotta start throttling back some of the fuchsia. So they really move around. They prolific seeders, and they'll spread by stolons. So it's a fun plant. I like it.
What do you think about the need for pruning when they, especially when the top stems die?
They look a little straggly this time of year, so I have these shears and I just
All the way
put them
down?
down. Nah, not like that. You get rid of that top stuff.
About
and-
2/3 down.
I've been putting back my buckwheat, secret buckwheat, but I think I'm gonna let it alone this year, but I've got to get to that fuchsia. That and California aster. Well, that's another one that will get big on you. It's not a small scale plant. If you're gonna be putting in something like what we did at, well, in the habitat areas, that's large scale planting, but not in a little Redondo Beach backyard. Half of it's filled with the garage. So did you get from Galen?
Oh, that was the question. That was the question.
Oh, on the
Did-
fuchsia?
Yes.
Oh, okay, so Galen, you get it?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. You want
And
any?
I might mention that our District 4 councilman in Redondo Beach has a native garden planted by Mike Garcia from Enviroscape. It's at the 2400 block of Rockefeller.
Okay,
And he does have the fuchsia as well as limonberry trees. Got a lot of different plants.
yeah. Mike tends to put in a lot of plants.
Mike Garcia has a gardening club the first Saturday of the month at 2 o'clock at his house in North Redondo, which is open to everybody. And then you can go and ask questions, take a look at his yard, and he'll go through different subjects at each meeting.
Yeah, he really likes water features too.
Oh, yeah. Well, what he does is he has koi, and then he collects the koi poop. He uses the water to help fertilize the plants.
Oh, okay. Any other questions?
Yes, Anne, this is Jan Gardner. I have a question. On the strand in Manhattan Beach, there are posting, there's signs about native plantings, and I see that people are planting more natives there. Now, were you involved with that effort, or is that the South Bay Parkland Conservancy, or were you involved with that? Because I noticed that, I'm starting to see some lemonade berry and some other native plants there.
Yeah, so that's a relatively new effort. I started doing projects in 2001, and we went into the ground in 2004. But that is being done by, they've changed their name so much, I can't keep it straight. The Bay Foundation or Friends of the Bay Foundation, something like that. They've got a 5-acre place on the LAX dunes, the northeast corner going in there. Everybody's realized we've got these sandy places. All we have to do is plant the right plants and they will come. It's really a case of you build it, they will come.
So we had talked about, and this is why I was asking too, establishing like a wildlife corridor of all of the plants, of the buckwheat, of all the stuff along that. It would include the strand, the plantings there to the bluff to PV. So it would be maybe from El Segundo to PV. So is that like one of the goals, is to get that going?
So there's this outfit called ESB Coalition. It's just a group of people interested in restoring the habitat. And one of the biggest corridors is Manhattan Beach, Hermosa Beach, Valley. I always call it Valley Ardmore. That's not exactly right. But the South,
I think that's where the South Bay Runners Club meets.
sure. The South Bay Parkland Conservancy is taking that on, and they're putting in habitat here and there and here and there. But the next thing to connect up is, we have Torrance Beach, Redondo Beach, got that power plant that needs to come down and put in habitat there. And and then connect that with Hermosa Beach, you know, we can get very close. The El Segundo Blue needs about a quarter of a mile, make a jump. It's jumped a half mile. And what's interesting is there's secret buckwheat all along the cliffs, going from Torrance Beach all the way down to Abalone Cove. Well, PVPLC has planted the buckwheat in Abalone Cove, but if you go to the Cindy Bluffs, every Tuesday from 9 to noon, from November through April, there are some people out there doing the gardening. But it continues on around. There's buckwheat on the cliff walls, all the way around through to Terranea. And then beyond. So there's connectivity. What we need to do is get Redondo Beach, Hermosa Beach, Manhattan Beach all connected up. And then they've got the connection in Madrona Marsh, excuse me. Bologna wetlands. Not switching gears here very well. So we do think it's possible to not just downlist, that's right. You can go to endangered to threatened to okay. We just want to go straight to it's doing well. We just have to connect them up. So I hope we'll want to see that. Any other questions, folks?
Yeah, I'm curious about so is creating a wildlife corridor the most important goal for saving these butterflies right now? And if so, why is that the most important priority?
Well, for the El Segundo Blue, you do want to develop the corridors because there's a genetics becomes involved. If you have isolated populations, they can get choked off into a bottleneck with very low diversity. That's what's happening with the mountain lions in the Santa Monica Mountains. They've got the bent toe, the kinked tail. And there's siblings or uncle and nephew and stuff like that, or uncle and whatever. They're getting too much inbreeding. That's why that wildlife corridor is going in the bridge over the Ventura Freeway. So if we can connect all these various populations, then you'll have more genetic sharing throughout them, and you'll have more resilience of the organisms, say a disease comes through. So it's one of those foundational ecology principles.
We didn't mention it, but another threat is the ocean, because just last week, the storm brought so much water up onto the Redondo bike path, probably unprecedented. And then it's even.
I commuted. I'm carrying on my bike, and there was a day when the ocean was going onto the bike path in front of those power
So
plants.
one of those habitats is between the residential and the ocean.
No, that's why I think people can put in these plants. And you go to calscape.org with your address, and they'll tell you what you can put in. Now, I heard you live nearby here?
Oh, yes, just across the street.
Yeah, so the also going to do is not going to be here, but the Bernardino is going to be here. And you can just go shopping and see what plants you like and stick them in. If you have ground, put them in the ground. If you only have pots, keep them to the smaller plants. California fuchsia does very well in pots.
Can we get that? Yeah.
So yeah, and anything people can do about putting in local native plants. It's important.
We'll talk after.
Yes, we will.
Okay.
All right, are we done?
Last minute questions, anyone?
So,
Go ahead, Jan. Go ahead, Jan.
Yeah, I wanted to just point out that our speaker next month in February
Yes,
is going to be the South Bay Parkland Conservancy. And they're going to kind of continue this discussion of putting in the native plants and what they have done and what they're working on in the area. And we're going to have both Jims.
Oh, and
Jim
Jim Al, and
Jim Montgomery and Jim something.
Light, Jim Light.
Jim Light, yes, yes. Next month in February, along with our 45th anniversary celebration.
yes. Be here or be square.
And they are very, they're in the know and they're very politically connected and supportive of this, and the city supports what they're doing.
Yeah, and they're very accomplished in their own careers, although
Yes.
Jim White is retired now, but not Jim Montgomery. And so they're very good speakers. They're really comfortable in front of an audience.
I have a
Thanks for
question.
doing that, Jan.
When is the best time of the year to plant the natives?
Fall. And I'll tell you why. It has to do with the roots. They're not going to grow in the summertime, right? That's the time to go into dormancy. Oh, and I never did talk about the different modes. That'll be another day. Put them in the ground in the fall, and you want to buy the small 4-inch pots. Try and avoid the 1 gallon pots. You get the small 4-inch pots that's small. Plant them and you water them whenever it doesn't rain. And by May, they're good. Generally, they have enough roots growing. So all they're going to do is grow. And the mnemonic to remember is native plants, the first year they sleep. You put them in the ground and all they're doing is growing their roots. The second year, they creep. They'll grow a little bit, but they're still growing their roots. And by the third year, they're going to have roots down that far in the ground. These guys don't fool around. And then they leap because they've grown enough roots to support the canopy. If you buy a plant with a whole lot of canopy and not enough roots, you have a real hard time bringing it to maturity. So when you go shopping for plants, look for their little roots because it has a small canopy relative to the roots in that 4-inch pot. And then when you put it into the ground, it's going to immediately start growing. So we do that with our adopted planet, Quite Vicente.